most vulnerable communities in Africa are hard places to be a girl. The burden of extreme poverty falls hardest on women and girls. They make up 70% of people living in extreme poverty. 60% of chronically hungry are women and girls. 2 out of every 3 people who are never taught to read or write are female. This has long been the case, but the situation of COVID-19 has made these burdens heavier, and it is magnifying inequality in our poorest communities across Africa. 90% of African women can only work informal jobs that are based in public places like the markets or street vendors. Over the past year, these informal jobs were the first to be shut down and will be the last to return. Much of it will never go back to normal. This greatly affects the most vulnerable families, most of which are headed and supported by these women. Women and girls are the caregivers of the community. When hospitals cannot care for these families, sick relatives or neighbors, and health problems increase, these caregivers pick up the burden, often abandoning school or hope of work. A crisis in a community makes girls significantly more vulnerable. Domestic violence and human trafficking are sharply increasing right now. Child marriages, where a young girl is married after an older man, are more likely to suffer abuse and poor health. These have risen to a point we haven't seen in 25 years. 15-year-old Sarah is one of the young girls living in the community of Kalende, Zambia, who is incredibly vulnerable to many threats to her well-being and future, including being forced into early marriage. Living with her mother and 3 younger step-siblings in a small shelter that once was home to pigs, life is a daily struggle. Sadly, her father passed away several years ago, leaving Sarah's mother under the sole responsibility of caring for her 4 children. In order for the family to survive, Sarah's mother sells traditional herbs and medicine. Up until the end of grade 7, Sarah attended the community school in Kalende, but was unable to afford the school fees necessary, so Sarah hasn't been able to start grade 8. With little means of financial security and no education, Sarah faces a very uncertain future, with little hope that life can improve. Too often, the vulnerability of girls like Sarah goes unseen and ignored. The situation is worsening, which is unacceptable. The goal of HandsatWorks' Life Center model is to make sure that Sarah is seen. It begins with mobilizing men and women from the local church who do take personal responsibility for these children in their own community. Charity is one care worker in Sarah's community. After growing up in a very difficult circumstance herself, she encountered the transforming love of Christ, healing many wounds in her life. She now desires to share that healing, and so she serves as a care worker at the local Hands at Work Life Center, helping provide access to basic services to vulnerable children, but also seeking out young girls like Sarah on a personal level, building a relationship with them and their families, walking through life with them, and bring hope to be a role model. The Hands at Work model also weaves together layers of local community stakeholders, like chiefs, clinics, church leaders, and schools, to whom frontline care workers like Charity can raise her concerns, advocating for protection and opportunity for vulnerable girls. This becomes a beautiful safety net woven together to catch children who would otherwise fall through the torn fabric of their community. As the crisis affecting young girls like Sarah deepens, it is creating an opportunity for action. With threats like human trafficking, worse than have ever been in decades, the problem can no longer be easily ignored and is demanding the attention of the local stakeholders. Now is the time to run towards the problem, to mobilize more care workers like charity, to lead and mentor more young girls on the path of life, and to equip local communities to ensure that young girls are not only protected, but also growing and giving opportunities for futures filled with hope. Now, in a season of crisis, is the time to act and to seize the opportunity, to be part of developing the future's leaders from among those who were once counted as the most overlooked.